Everyone, and welcome to this new video. Today we're going to learn some internet history. So today's topic is Superwholock. If you're not familiar with this term, I'm going to explain to you what it basically is. And it's a combination of three of the main fandoms that were really popular on Tumblr during 2012-2013. Super stands for supernatural, Who stands for Doctor Who, and the last parallel comes from Sherlock BBC. All of these three shows were really popular on the internet, especially on Tumblr. And this popularity made that so many people that follow one show also follow the other. And for this reason, this large group of people combined created this new fandom. Superwholock is not as popular as it was a few years ago. And people are starting to ask themselves why. Because if you were on Tumblr during that period, you were going to see something made from and for this fandom. It was impossible for you not to see anything. It didn't matter which kind of people you followed. You were going to see it. So this particular fandom was so popular because at the time all three of these TV shows were putting out content and the people were passionate enough to create content of their own, that is fan art, fan fiction, etc. And this of course is the main reason why a fandom is alive. People will watch things, usually TV shows, especially in these cases, and people that are so inspired by the product they're consuming that they develop things on their own. And this is the main reason people enjoy fandom, love fandom, whether you actively produce things or you just enjoy what other people make. For the first part of this video, I'm going to explore these three different fandoms a little bit in order to explain what they were. So the supernatural fandom, it is the one I'm the least familiar with because I have never seen one single episode of Supernatural, and the things I know because of the Superwholock and how popular it was. So Supernatural, it's a show about two brothers, Sam and Dean, and they are basically demon hunters to my knowledge. And each episode they have to fight some evil kind of creatures. To my knowledge, the reason this fandom was so popular is because of a couple called Destiel, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, which was made of Dean, one of the two brothers, and Castiel, who was a character later introduced in the series. If I remember correctly, he is an angel or something. And people heavily ship them, so they really want them to happen. And I've seen that online this couple is considered one of the most popular cases of queerbaiting. I have to say I don't exactly agree with this definition, but I will explain later what I mean. And the most infamous thing that is fandom generated was the Mish Apocalypse. If you don't know what the Mish Apocalypse is, you're very lucky. It basically was, they decided that on the first day of April, that is April's Fool, they decided to change their icons both on Tumblr and Twitter and to put their name as Misha. Misha is the actor who plays Castiel. So they basically were trolling and pranking other people, especially on Twitter, where you can interact with the actual actors from the series. And they shows this unflattering and kind of weird picture, and they just put it everywhere. Here are some examples of what they did, and there were GIFs, edits, video, anything you can think of. They Mish Apocalypse did. The first time, I don't exactly remember this event, probably because I didn't watch Supernatural, so my dash wasn't exactly full of Mish Apocalypse, but I've seen some of it, and people remember it as something so great and so weird that still to this day it is talk about it. The first year they did this was 2013, and from what I've seen, they do this every year, every single April's Fool. But the fandom is not as big as it was, so in the last few years, the Mish Apocalypse did not really impact Tumblr or the internet in general. And this is one of the main proof that his fandom is collapsing in a way. So to the next fandom, Doctor Who. I'd put Doctor Who and Sherlock together because they are both product of Britain, and I'd say they go along with some kind of Britain craze that was super popular, and it is still popular. So basically people loving everything British, from actors to TV shows, way of living. Both of these shows were popular around the same time, so if you really loved one, you probably watched the other. So Doctor Who, I'd say out all of these three is the one that generated a different kind of fan. First of all, Doctor Who has been on for several years. The original series is really old, and there were many seasons already. In 2009, people decided to revive it, and so new doctors and new adventures came along, and this is when people started to get attached to new doctors and new stories. Doctor Who is the only fandom out of these three that doesn't involve one popular gay ship, which is considered queerbaiting by the fan. So I think this is one of the reasons people were not as crazy about it as they were for Supernatural and Sherlock. Still, Doctor Who generated some kind of craziness, and I'd say some really interesting fans, even if they didn't generate something as crazy as the Mitch Apocalypse or what the Sherlock fandom did, which I'm going to explain very soon. Sherlock is a TV show that I watch along with Doctor Who, but I've never really loved it, so I never understood the hype around it, even when it was at its peak and it was particularly popular. But people loved it, and some people still do, but I say not so many as when it began. And the Sherlock fandom, in my opinion, out of all these three, is the one that is more interesting and that generated the more interesting content. The thing with the Sherlock fandom is that they created John Locke conspiracy, which is one of my favorite things the internet did. And I want to say, first of all, I'm not trying to mock people who believe in John Locke or love John Locke, because as a ship, I think it could be really interesting and even enjoyed. I'm not a super big fan of Sherlock, so I'm all over a casual viewer, and I don't condone queerbaiting. But as for Supernatural, I don't think this was exactly the case. But the John Locke conspiracy is nevertheless one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in my life. Basically, people believe that the authors of Sherlock, that is Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss, placed little hints and clues in every episode of Sherlock in order to make some people, I guess, the fans, the most dedicated fans, understand that John and Sherlock were going to be together in the end. John Locke was a very big ship, it today still is, and I'd say that most people who watch Sherlock love John Locke. John Locke is of course the ship for John Watson and Sherlock Holmes. I haven't said this before because I just assume everyone knew because of how popular it was. It turns out that that wasn't the case, because Sherlock ended, from what I've seen. I mean, the last season came out in 2017, and John Locke didn't happen, and so many people just were terribly upset and disappointed because it was not what they were expecting, and this generated one of the most incredible things I've ever seen on the internet, and was the conspiracy that there was a secret Sherlock episode and the conspiracy involved with the Russian episode, which I'm just citing now, but I'm not going to talk about it because I'm thinking about making an entire separate video about it because it was so incredible. I think it deserves attention and a whole new video dedicated about it. So let's talk about what this video is really about. So why did Superwholock ended? Why people are not interested in this show as they were once before, and I have a few theories. I have a few points I like to explain, and I think the real reason is a combination of all of these possibilities. So the first one is long hiatuses, especially for Sherlock. Each season of Sherlock came long after the one before. And during this period, people usually went on and made gifs and fan arts and fanfiction or theories about what was going to happen next. Because Sherlock as a show allowed people to generate a lot of meta and theories, which I think for a show is a really good thing. It's really fun. But it doesn't always end well, as we've seen for John Locke. But the thing is that long pauses between seasons made so people usually get into other things. If I have to wait like 3 years for a new episode of my favorite TV show, I'm not just going to wait for that long. I'm going to watch other things and care about other TV shows. Not having new content for a long time cause people to just lose interest in it. But like I've said, this is mostly for Sherlock because both Doctor Who and Supernatural have different schedules. Another thing could be queerbaiting, kind of. Like I've said, I don't believe this is exactly queerbaiting, and I'm finally going to explain why. Queerbaiting, to my understanding, involves the authors of the TV show to actively and actually try to fool the viewers into thinking that it's going to happen, but never giving it to them because they want to. But I don't think this was the case for both Supernatural and Sherlock. Like I've said, I've never seen Supernatural, so I don't know much about it. But as for Sherlock, I'm sure that if John Locke was the intention of the creators, they would have done it, because both Moffat and Gatiss didn't have any problem with doing what they wanted to do. And we also know that Gatiss is himself a gay man, which I'm sure means that he would have loved to give some representation to the fans. But the fact that John Locke didn't happen, to me, means nothing more than they didn't want it to happen. It was not their intention. And I know that both of them stated multiple times that maybe they were lying about some things, but ultimately they always denied John Locke, and to me they didn't show any interest in actually making canon. Maybe they made a few jokes, but I've never thought it was actually going to happen, especially because of what they've always said. So I don't think this could be technically queerbaiting, but most of a situation where something got really popular and the writers and creators did not expect it to be as popular as it was. Maybe they play with it later, especially for Supernatural, but it wasn't their intention. I don't know if I explain it well, but to sum it up, I don't think they were actually and actively trying to make people believe that their gay ship were going to happen, only to trick them and make them follow the series when they didn't. So I don't think it was a conscious decision to fool their fans. Just saying. Another main point is that these TV shows didn't age well. So there's a lot of criticism surrounding them. People now are more aware about minorities represented in the media, and all of these TV shows are very white and very male, especially Sherlock, with very few important female characters. And like I've said, I've never seen Supernatural, but to my knowledge, the only woman the fandom cared about was Charlie, who was a lesbian and was also killed in an episode. So again, like I've said, not great representation. It literally falls under the barrier gay trope, which is now heavily criticized. And to my knowledge, every other woman whoever interacted with both Sam or Dean was instantly hated because she was in the middle of different ships, mainly ships between two men, which are great but also don't enter women. So basically, things that happen in these TV shows are now not so great. Like, I remember the whole plot surrounding Irene Adler on Sherlock, which was what? Basically, they introduce Irene as a lesbian, but then she falls in love with Sherlock because Sherlock is so good and so great that not even lesbian can help falling in love with him, and which was very weird to me. And I don't think that now in 2018 people will take this kind of storyline well, because it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, sexuality is fluid and things just happen, but why did you have to make Irene a lesbian when she then falls in love with a man? You could have made, a bisexual character or just a straight woman. So what? And as far as Doctor Who is concerned, the series itself, I think, does a little bit of a better job to introduce minorities. We have Mickey and Martha and the lizard lady and her wife, but all of these are not beloved characters. I don't know why, especially with Martha, because I think she's great, but they always felt more like background characters than actual main important characters, both from the writing and their perception of the public. And things got only worse when Moffat took the reins of Doctor Who. We have this incredibly sexist quote is said during the course of several interviews. This one in particular about Karen Gillan when she auditioned for the role of Amy Pond is, to me, so disgusting, and people talk heavily about it. I remember seeing blog completely dedicated to hate on Moffat and his sexism and his homophobia or whatever. And I don't think he's a monster, but I don't even think he's that much of a good writer or a person. So I think that maybe back then people put up with it because they love the shows, but right now I've seen lots of disappointment and hate towards this man. Another important point to me is fandom cringiness. This fandom in particular was one of the most obnoxious fandoms in the entire internet, and at the time it was kind of accepted because people acted that way back then. There were memes and phrases that now sound completely weird, like "what is there?" or "I can't even." And this fandom in particular generated some of the most irritating things and the cringiest and weirdest, like the meme X fandom grab your Y, like Supernatural fandom grab your salt, Harry Potter fandom grab your wands. It was bad, and it was part of the constant fight that people on Tumblr had with people on Facebook, because Tumblr was the place where all nerd and nerdy things lived, and Facebook was seen as this place where preppy people and homophobic people hang out, when the reality is just that your social media presence is shaped by the people you involve in it. Like, Tumblr is a website that literally shows you only the things you want to see by following the people you want to follow. I mean, things changed. Now you see posts from people you don't follow, but that's another story. And I think that being constantly made fun of and categorized as the cringiest part of the internet really put off many people. Like, they didn't want to get associated with that, and I get it. But also I think it's kind of mean. Like, if you're not doing anything bad, even if you're a little bit weird, doesn't really matter. And that brings me to the last point, and that is that people grow both physically, mentally, and emotionally. I mean, many people in 2012. Many people who were part of these fandoms, I believe, were very young. Like in 2012, 2013, I was myself just a teenager, and I think most of these people were. And when you are that young on the internet, maybe you think that some things that are actually kind of lame are cool, but it's just because you're basically a kid. And I don't think people should be made fun of for that. And I think that people grew and became sort of adults, like people in their 20s, and they realized that it was just not worth it. And I get it, because it's part of human life. You cannot like the same thing for all your life. It would be weird if you were in your 20s and thinking, oh yeah, I was totally cool when I was 14 and 15, I was the best. Like, nobody thinks that. And I just think that people realize that maybe the fandom was a great experience, it was fun, but it was also a past thing, a thing you did when you were a kid and you don't enjoy anymore, which I think is completely fair. So to end this video, I just believe that the Superwholock fandom didn't exactly disappear out of thin air. People change, people get interested into new things, and things can stay popular for that many years unless there is constantly new content and new dedication from both the creators and the fans, because just how internet works. Things get on trending because something new happened. Sherlock can trend because there isn't any new episode. The theories have to end at some point because you watch and rewatch the same episode over and over. But if there is nothing new to analyze, it just ends. People change, people realize that things they loved when they were little were not as progressive and inclusive as they thought they were, or people just realize that their tastes have changed and just don't like it anymore, which is fine. I hope you guys enjoyed this little episode of Internet History. I hope you learned something new, and let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas about what happened to this fandom, or if you are still in one of these fandoms. Let me know down in the comments what's going on, what's happening in it, because even though I was never part of it, it's really interesting to study fandoms and to see how things change online. And this is why I made this series after all. Goodbye, everyone.